Hi, this is a new episode of Webintelligency's AI-based podcast brought to you by Mark and Rita.
Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today, well, it's to unpack a stack of sources focused on a really timely and, frankly, profoundly counterintuitive business strategy,
Okay.
which is establishing international R&D centers in Israel. And we're specifically looking at this, considering the current geopolitical environment.
Okay, let's unpack this because, conventional wisdom, it just screams caution, doesn't it? Demand stability before you make a big foreign direct investment.
Right.
Yet the sources we've got, they strongly argue that now.
Mm.
Well, it isn't just an acceptable time, but maybe a genuine strategic window for investment. That's the core idea we need to test, I think.
Exactly.
So for you, the learner, if you want to understand how this historical resilience, how it translates into actual high measurable ROI, we're going to cover the economic patterns, which are pretty surprising. Then there's the innovation ecosystem, which seems kind of irreplaceable. The government support, which is crucial. And, the practical on-the-ground steps you'd actually need to take.
Precisely. We need to move beyond just the headlines and answer some core questions like, why do these huge companies, Intel, NVIDIA, Microsoft, companies that are normally very risk-averse, why do they not only stay there but keep expanding aggressively even?
Good point.
And what specific strategic advantage could a new company, a new entrant, gain by moving decisively right now, during this period of perceived uncertainty? It's really an analysis where the historical data seems to strongly suggest that the calculated opportunity, it outweighs the short-term risks. We need to provide the granular detail behind that claim.
So, Section 1, the core argument, resilience and strategic timing. This is where it gets really interesting for me. The sources claim Israel's economy doesn't just, recover from geopolitical crises. It consistently comes out stronger. It's almost like crisis is a catalyst for deeper innovation.
Yeah, it's treated almost like an economic pattern, not an exception.
So what's the historical data? What underpins this idea of proven resilience and gives these international investors that kind of confidence?
Well, it's not just about bouncing back. It's really about structural transformation, often driven by sheer necessity. And to understand today, you really have to look back at that historical crucible. The most significant example, probably the aftermath of the 1973 Yom Kippur War.
Right. That war was a huge national shock, wasn't it? Politically, economically. How did that translate into a stronger economy? That seems counterintuitive.
Well, after 73, Israel faced, severe economic stagnation, really high inflation. The shock basically exposed the nation's technological dependence on its allies. So the sources detail how the government made this really decisive fundamental shift in national capital allocation. They prioritized self-reliance in tech, directed R&D.
So they doubled down on tech.
Massively. Huge investment poured into higher education, specialized R&D programs, and crucially, defense technology, which then, spun out into the commercial sector later on.
So the crisis didn't just trigger a recovery. It actually built the foundation for the modern high-tech sector we see today.
Absolutely. That crisis was the catalyst. It moved the economy away from more traditional industry and really cemented its global competitiveness in IP and advanced tech. It basically set the pattern. Crisis demands innovative solutions, and those solutions then become massive commercial exports.
Okay, and if we look at more recent examples, maybe more contained ones, the economic impact seems incredibly small compared to the scale of the conflicts themselves.
Yeah, the sources really confirm this containment capacity. Look at the 2006 Lebanon War. The total economic cost, minimal, estimated at only about 0.5% of the annual GDP.
0.5%, wow.
And similarly, the 2014 Gaza conflict, that impacted just 0.4% of economic output. And critically, both of those conflicts were followed not by some lingering recession, but by rapid, sustained growth phases, usually within 12 to 18 months.
So the structure itself is designed to absorb shocks.
It seems inherently designed now, yes.
Right.
To absorb these external shocks quickly and then immediately pivot back to innovation and high productivity output.
That historical path is pretty clear then. But we have to address the immediate reality. What does this pattern mean for current indicators? Are we seeing this resilience playing out right now? Especially given that recent tensions have been much more prolonged, more intense than maybe some past conflicts. Does that change the equation?
That's a vital question, absolutely. Analysts often look for those direct parallels, but yeah, the current situation is unique in its duration and intensity. However, the system's underlying strength, it seems to be proving robust. We're seeing remarkable stability in key areas that sort of defy expectations.
Like what specifically?
Well, Despite intense military mobilization, the civilian labor market, especially in the tech sector, it remains close to full employment, which is pretty amazing.
It is.
And strategic sectors, high-tech, cybersecurity, defense, they aren't just maintaining activity. Many are actually experiencing accelerated growth during this war period simply because demand for their specific technologies has increased.
And the financial side.
Yeah,
The metrics seem to reflect this underlying strength, too, suggesting global markets still trust the fiscal management.
correct. I mean, after an initial immediate depreciation of the currency, which you'd expect in any conflict situation, the shekel stabilized relatively quickly.
Okay.
That demonstrates that fundamental investor confidence returned fast, trusting the central bank's handling of things. And furthermore, while the budget deficit did rise sharply, hitting around 8% of GDP because of defense and social spending.
Right, that's a big number.
It is, but the sources are clear that this deficit has stabilized. It hasn't continued ballooning. And that stabilization signals to global markets that the fiscal situation, although stressed, is seen as temporary and controlled. It mitigates fears of long-term fiscal instability.
Okay, but the most compelling stat for me, and honestly the most surprising, is the evidence that capital is actively flowing in right now. I mean, that's the ultimate validation of this strategic timing argument, isn't it?
Absolutely. The data from Israeli high tech, looking across the first 3 quarters of 2025, it's just extraordinary. You have to understand it in context. M&A activity reached an astounding $71 billion.
Hold on, let me stop you there.
Uh,
71 billion in M&A. That's what, 5 times the amount from the year before?
That's right, nearly 5 times.
How can we be sure that isn't just, old deals finally closing, deals from before the recent troubles?
That's where the analysis needs to be sharp, definitely. And while, yes, some deals certainly originated before the recent conflicts flared up, it's the volume and the speed of capital closing, especially the massive influx of late-stage funding rounds that the sources document that shows this deep, reinforced conviction by global investors.
So it's new money, or at least recently committed money.
A significant portion is. Leading VCs, including some very high-profile ones who are normally quite sensitive to market sentiment, they're not just reinforcing their Israeli presence, they're actively advising their portfolio companies to capitalize on potentially lower valuations caused by the temporary dip in startup funding availability.
So it's opportunistic in a strategic way.
Exactly. This surge isn't just leftover momentum. It reflects a powerful global belief in the inherent value of Israeli innovation. It really confirms the argument. Superior long-term returns seem to await those who act decisively during these periods when their competitors might hesitate.
Okay, so Section 2, the innovation ecosystem advantage. If the economic resilience is the strong foundation supporting investment, then this innovation ecosystem, that's really the engine promising that superior ROI you mentioned. For a global company looking to access capabilities that are genuinely world-leading, what exactly are the unique, almost impossible to replicate ingredients that make the Israeli tech environment so dynamic?
Well, it's often described as a closed-loop system. It's self-reinforcing, highly optimized, and built on 3 core pillars that really depend on each other. You can't just take one away without weakening the whole structure.
Okay, let's start with the one that seems most unique, the talent pipeline connected to the military.
Right, that's the first pillar, military technology transfer. And we're not just talking about basic military service here. We mean highly specialized, incredibly rigorous programs like Unit 8200 and the Talpiot program.
Salpiat. What exactly is that, and why does it matter so much to a commercial R&D center looking for talent?
Talpiot is arguably the most intellectually demanding program in the country. It's extremely selective, a multi-year training program specifically designed to create future leaders in military, science, and technology.
So it's broad but deep.
Very. Graduates are trained in hard science, physics, math, computer science, but also alongside rigorous command training and strategic thinking. The unique value they bring to the commercial sector isn't just raw technical skill. It's an inherent understanding of complex systems, how they fail, managing high-stakes risk, operating under extreme pressure, all things directly applicable to complex commercial R&D.
In 8200, that's more focused on the immediate cutting-edge software and cyber side.
Precisely. Unit 8200 focused on intelligence and cyber operations. Turns out graduates who have hands-on real-world experience. They've designed and deployed highly sophisticated cybersecurity and software systems at a national scale. This talent pipeline is, frankly, unparalleled globally. It gives R&D centers an accelerated workforce that's already handled mission-critical projects.
Okay, so you have this incredible, practical, high-pressure experience.
Yeah.
But that technical talent needs a theoretical foundation, right?
Yeah,
That brings us to the second pillar.
exactly. The world-class academia. Universities like the Israel Institute of Technology and Hebrew University in Jerusalem, they're consistently ranked among the top global leaders in fields critical for modern R&D. Computer science, electrical engineering, life sciences research.
So you have the theory and the next-gen research from academia.
Right. It provides the foundational knowledge, the bleeding-edge research, and a constant stream of bright young talent. The military pipeline then takes some of that talent, accelerates it, and focuses it towards practical commercial viability.
And then the third pillar kind of wraps this all together into a hyper-dynamic market.
That's the deep-seated entrepreneurial culture. You combine that high-stakes military training, the world-class theory, and this very direct, no-nonsense communication style.
Yeah, the famous chutzpah.
You could call it that. It fosters rapid innovation, a higher tolerance for risk-taking, quick iteration. This is why established giants like Intel and Microsoft aren't just partnering. They're continuously expanding their own operations and acquiring Israeli startups, often at premium valuations.
This whole network effect.
Exactly. Failure is often seen more as a necessary input for learning, not some career-ending black mark.
Let's zoom out a bit then and give the listener a sense of the sheer scale of the multinational operation that relies on this ecosystem. How big is the foreign corporate presence we're talking about?
The numbers are quite stark, really. They underscore the global reliance on this innovation center. Israel hosts 434 multinational R&D centers.
434. Wow. That's over 400 major global companies, pharma, chip makers, software giants, with dedicated operational R&D centers there.
Yes, and crucially, these aren't just marginal back offices.
Right. What's their actual contribution?
Well, these centers employ a full third of the nation's entire tech workforce. They account for 40% of the total national R&D expenditures, and they drive a remarkable 60% of Israel's total high-tech exports.
60% of high-tech exports. So this isn't auxiliary R&D at all. It's absolutely mission-critical innovation driving global industries.
Absolutely.
And that leads directly to productivity, right? The sources mentioned a significant advantage here.
Correct. The data highlights that these multinational centers tend to maintain productivity rates roughly 20% higher than the global average, or even compared to their local competitors in some specific fields. And the learner needs to understand why that happens.
Exactly. Is it just cultural intensity working harder, or is it efficiency?
It seems to be a combination. First, yes, the talent pool is exceptionally dense, as we discussed. Second, the flatter organizational structures common in Israeli tech, often influenced by that military experience, generally mean faster decision-making, fewer bureaucratic layers, slowing down R&D cycles.
Less red tape.
Less red tape, quicker pivots. Third, and this is critical, the R&D centers benefit from streamlined regulatory processes for experimentation and funding, which we'll get into more detail on in Section 4.
Okay.
So for a new international company coming in, setting up an R&D center means almost immediate access to this proven, high-productivity talent pool, established supply chains, collaborative networks. It offers an immediate and potentially sustained competitive advantage by significantly accelerating R&D timelines.
Okay. Section 3 then. The gateway to regional markets. Thinking about the Abraham Accords. Connecting this to the bigger picture. For global players, the strategic thinking behind R&D investment, it can't just be limited to the Israeli market itself, can it?
No, absolutely not.
The sources highlight the Abraham Accords as a potentially transformative long-term factor. How does setting up an R&D center in, say, Tel Aviv suddenly position a company as a gateway to the Gulf and broader Middle Eastern markets?
Well, the Accords, signed in 2020, fundamentally redrew the economic and geopolitical map of the region. Now, despite the recent temporary challenges and tensions, the sources stress that the long-term economic relationships, the infrastructure links, the business agreements, they largely remain intact. Business leaders across the region seem deeply committed to normalization and trade expansion over the long haul.
So the underlying structure is still there.
The structure is there. These agreements unlocked unprecedented access to wealthy, previously pretty much inaccessible regional markets for Israeli-based operations.
And we keep hearing these huge numbers associated with the potential opening.
Yeah, the long-term projections are immense, and they're really fundamental to the strategic case here. Analysts project the potential for something like 4 million new jobs and maybe $1 trillion in new economic activity across the region over the next decade.
$1 trillion.
It's a huge potential market. So for international companies establishing an Israeli R&D center now, perhaps when valuations might be temporarily more attractive, it positions them perfectly to capture a slice of that regional boom once the geopolitical situation stabilizes.
So what's the specific practical role Israel plays in that regional network, beyond just being a neighbor with newly opened borders?
Israel functions primarily as a technology and innovation hub for the Gulf markets. Companies in the UAE and Bahrain, for instance, they're actively seeking technology solutions, especially in fields where Israel has demonstrated global leadership, like fintech, agri-tech, water tech.
Right.
And conversely, the UAE, particularly Dubai, is strategically positioning itself as a gateway for Israeli enterprises and the MNCs operating there to access broader Asian and global markets more easily.
So establishing the R&D center in Israel automatically lets you plug into these regional trade and financial frameworks.
Yeah.
The Tel Aviv office effectively becomes a regional HQ for tech development.
Absolutely. The bilateral agreements are pretty comprehensive. They span critical areas: finance, cybersecurity, innovation transfer, healthcare tech, clean energy, telecoms. An R&D center based in Israel isn't just serving the domestic market, it's gaining privileged access to deploy market-specific innovations across this vast, wealthy region.
Okay, that raises an important point then. What kind of R&D investment is specifically optimized by this regional gateway effect? Is it better for hardware, software, or maybe something else entirely?
Well, the regional positioning is particularly valuable, I think, for R&D centers focused on technologies directly relevant to the specific needs of Middle Eastern markets. These countries have unique demographic, environmental, and infrastructure challenges.
Like water scarcity, for example.
Exactly. That's a prime example. So water technology and desalination, absolutely critical for arid regions. Renewable energy solutions tailored for intense solar climates. Advanced agricultural innovation, agri-tech designed for resource efficiency in challenging environments. And also digital infrastructure, fintech solutions, leveraging Israel's advanced tech infrastructure to help modernize Gulf financial services.
So by setting up a center in Tel Aviv, you potentially gain both the technological capability and the sort of cultural proximity or understanding needed to rapidly deploy market-specific innovations across the Gulf. That feels like a massive long-term differentiator that competitors trying to operate from Europe or North America just can't easily replicate.
Precisely. You benefit from Israel's established governmental and business relationships in the region, minimizing the friction and the steep cultural learning curve that usually comes with entering these complex new markets. It fundamentally lowers the cost and risk of market entry into the Middle East for these specialized technology sectors.
Okay, let's move to Section 4, government support and the incentive framework.
Right.
We've talked about the economic argument, the ecosystem advantage, but making a large-scale investment during uncertain times, it's inherently riskier.
Of course.
This is where government support mechanisms become absolutely critical, right? To sort of de-risk the move. What comprehensive support structures are available from the Israeli government, particularly aimed at foreign companies setting up R&D centers?
Yeah, the entire governmental framework seems intentionally built not just to attract R&D, but really to sustain it through various economic cycles. The Israel Innovation Authority, or IIA, that's the central pillar here, it's often described as the strategic investment arm of the state. They operate something like over 40 specialized grant programs.
40 programs. Okay, we need to understand the mechanics of the main one, the flagship program. Tell us about the R&D fund.
Right, the R&D fund. It provides conditional grants, typically ranging from 20% up to maybe 50% of the approved R&D expenditures for a given project. What makes this a real game changer for international investors is the conditional nature of the repayment.
Conditional repayment. Walk us through a scenario. Let's say an MNC spends $1 million on a new R&D project. How does the fund work in practice?
Okay. Let's assume the project gets approved and receives, say, a 40% grant. The IIA provides the MNC with $400,000 upfront for approved expenses, things like salaries, equipment, materials. Now, crucially, the company only has to repay that grant, plus some interest, if the project achieves commercial success and actually starts generating revenue.
And if it doesn't? If the R&D fails or the product never makes it to market?
Then the company keeps the grant. The IIA essentially absorbs that initial failure risk. This structure significantly reduces the sunk cost risk for potentially high-risk early-stage R&D spending, and that's enormously attractive to international corporations trying to justify innovation budgets.
Yeah, that drastically alters the internal corporate calculation for risk management. I can see that.
Yeah.
Are there specific tracks designed for the really big established international corporations, not just local startups?
Absolutely. The IAA recognized that large multinational corporations, MNCs, they have different needs, different scales. So they created a dedicated program, the program to encourage R&D centers activity. It's specifically tailored for these big global players.
And what does that offer?
Well, it provides not just financial support, but also dedicated regulatory and operational assistance, which can be just as valuable.
What's the commitment required from the MNC side?
The primary requirement is usually a commitment to stable growth. The MNC typically has to commit to hiring a minimum number of additional R&D employees, often around 30 within a 3-year period.
Right.
In return, the program offers substantial financial support, sometimes helping with capital expenditure costs, and provides that essential expedited regulatory help. Things like dedicated liaisons to help navigate complex permitting or operational setup hurdles.
And we noted earlier, the government uses these grants strategically to encourage development outside these super competitive Tel Aviv hub.
They do. It's a core strategic objective, trying to spread the benefits. Companies that choose to establish centers in designated development regions, usually in the north or the south of the country, they receive an additional support bonus, often 10% on top of the base grant.
And even more in some areas.
Yes, if they locate in specific strategic areas, maybe near borders or in areas targeted for specific types of development, they can access up to 25% additional funding. This provides a really strong, quantifiable financial incentive to expand the talent search geographically, which also helps mitigate that concentration risk in the central region.
Okay, so beyond the grants, let's talk tax incentives. These are often the real drivers of long-term profitability for global operations.
Definitely. And the tax framework is also engineered to optimize that long-term ROI. The well-known Angels Law, for instance, provides tax credits specifically for private R&D investments. It incentivizes private capital, both local and foreign, to flow into innovation.
And for the international parent company.
More significantly, perhaps, foreign residents can enjoy exemptions from Israeli capital gains tax under specific conditions related to their R&D investments made within Israel.
Exemption from capital gains tax for foreign residents on specific R&D gains. That sounds like a huge incentive, especially for investors bringing in valuable intellectual property or planning for an exit.
It is. It creates a much more favorable environment for things like IPOs or M&A exits, which reinforces the whole ecosystem by encouraging that cycle of investment and return. And it's not just national level support either.
Right, it's multi-tiered.
Exactly. Local incentives matter too. The Tel Aviv municipality, for example, offers significant benefits like potential property tax reductions, maybe up to 50%, for companies with demonstrable substantial R&D operations within the city limits.
So when you layer it all together.
Right, you get these combined layers of benefits. The conditional grants, the accelerated regulatory help, the national and local tax breaks, they all work together to significantly lower the long-term operational cost base for R&D.
Finally, on support, are there specialized benefits for the really large, maybe strategically crucial sectors, like finance or biotech?
Yes, the government does recognize that attracting specialized large-scale investment often requires dedicated, tailored resources. So specialized tracks exist. For example, for financial sector companies with a global turnover exceeding, say, $10 billion, there are dedicated support programs focused specifically on advanced fintech R&D.
And biotech.
Likewise, biotech and medical device companies often receive prioritized treatment under specific incentive tracks. They benefit from access to world-class local clinical facilities and potentially more streamlined regulatory pathways unique to that sector within Israel. The whole support system aims to be comprehensive and pretty adaptive, constantly evolving to try and meet the needs of major global players.
Okay, Section 5. Webintelligency's comprehensive solutions, essentially bridging the gap. We've laid out the case, but establishing these complex, high-stakes operations in a new market, even one as dynamic as Israel.
Yeah.
It still presents massive hurdles, right? Logistical, compliance, cultural barriers.
Absolutely. Huge barriers.
The sources detail how a specialist consultancy, like Webintelligency, can potentially accelerate this whole process, helping a client actually capture that strategic timing advantage we've been discussing. So let's break down the essential operational support required to bridge that gap between deciding on the strategy and achieving rapid time to value on the ground.
Yeah, success really hinges on eliminating those 4 critical barriers that typically cause major delays and cost overruns. Strategic misalignment,
Sure.
leadership gaps, compliance failures, and just plain logistics nightmares.
You need to be up and running effectively in months, not years, to really capture the timing advantage.
Exactly.
So let's start with the groundwork. If decisions are being made in this climate of perceived risk, the strategic intelligence has to be absolutely pristine, right?
Absolutely. Strategic intelligence and risk mitigation has to be the bedrock. This means providing comprehensive, real-time intelligence, not just generic market reports. We're talking about the ecosystem dynamics, the evolving regulatory environment, detailed competitive landscapes.
Going deeper than standard reports.
Much deeper. It includes intensive due diligence on potential physical facility locations, detailed analysis of what competitors are doing with their R&D strategies to maybe identify niches, and actively identifying potential strategic partnership or even acquisition opportunities that align with the client's goals.
So the goal isn't just finding a location, but making sure the R&D center's focus and structure perfectly align with the client's global objectives and, crucially, with the current local realities. It needs to dispel fear based on geopolitical noise with hard data.
Correct. This intelligence framework acts as a powerful risk mitigation tool from day one. It ensures decisions are based on current factual data, not outdated perceptions or generalized fears. That significantly reduces the chances of those strategic or operational missteps that are so common during rapid international expansion.
Okay, moving to the people and culture side. Executive leadership and operational management. We talked about that unique Israeli business culture, direct, fast-paced. How does a consultancy effectively bridge that gap for a large international corporation?
This is often the most critical success factor, and the trickiest. International corporations usually operate under rigorous, structured corporate governance procedures. Israel's tech culture, as we said, thrives on rapid decision-making, very direct feedback, informal relationship building.
It sounds like a potential clash.
It can be. An MNC absolutely needs a local center director who can effectively navigate both worlds. Someone who can harmonize this direct, fast-paced Israeli style with the more methodical international corporate processes and reporting structures.
That sounds like a very specific skill set.
Right.
Finding that person must be tough.
It is a tightrope walk, yeah. So a service like Webintelligency addresses this not just by providing a short list of candidates, but by actively sourcing, vetting, and placing qualified project managers and center directors who demonstrably possess this dual cultural fluency.
And they provide support beyond just hiring.
Yes. Crucially, they often provide hands-on, active management support for the critical first year or so operations. This kind of interim management ensures operational stability and cultural alignment during that high-risk establishment phase, while the permanent local leadership gets fully embedded.
That hands-on support seems key.
Yeah.
Okay, now what about the real nuts and bolts? Location, compliance, and actually securing the high-demand talent in that competitive market.
Right. This is where that deep, local, specialized knowledge really delivers rapid results. In location and compliance, the services need to be extensive. It covers sophisticated facility selection, evaluating factors like proximity to specific talent pools, cost optimization, ensuring you have state-of-the-art, resilient tech infrastructure, and navigating those complex commercial lease negotiation processes.
And the compliance side must be a minefield.
It can be, so they manage the entire regulatory burden. The business registration process, securing all necessary permits, navigating complex Israeli employment law, including the critical nuances surrounding mandatory military reserve duty for employees handling IP protection registration, and ensuring the company is set up to optimize all those tax and grant benefits we talked about earlier.
Addressing the details of employment law, especially around reserve duty, that must be a major point of anxiety for foreign HQs unfamiliar with the system.
It is, absolutely. A specialist team ensures that when key talent is inevitably called up for reserve duty, there are seamless HR and logistical transition plans already in place. They ensure built-in redundancy, manage payroll and benefits correctly, and maintain full compliance, which mitigates business continuity risk significantly.
Okay, and the talent market itself. We know it's deep, but it's also incredibly competitive. How do you actually find and hire the right people quickly?
Yeah, it requires sophisticated, highly targeted recruitment strategies. Simply posting on job boards isn't enough. Webintelligency's talent acquisition approach combines deep market knowledge with proven, often quite proactive methodologies to build high-performance R&D teams fast.
What does that mean in practice?
It means recruiting across all the needed disciplines: software engineers, data scientists, hardware designers, system architects. But critically, it means tapping directly into the established networks of graduates from those elite military units and leading universities, often identifying and engaging talent before they even hit the open job market.
Getting ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And it also includes developing specific retention strategies tailored to the local market and facilitating the recruitment of some international talent where needed, perhaps to bridge specific cultural or operational gaps with the global HQ. The goal is ensuring the team is cohesive and high-performing from day one.
Okay, finally, the new center can't operate in a vacuum, right? It needs to align and integrate seamlessly with the international headquarters.
Absolutely vital. That's strategic coordination and integration, the final piece of the puzzle. This involves meticulous vendor management for specialized equipment, facilities, professional services like legal and accounting. But crucially, it involves ensuring the R&D center maintains tight, continuous alignment with the corporate parent's overall strategic objectives.
How do you ensure that alignment?
Through clear processes for knowledge transfer, maintaining rigorous IP management protocols that fit the global framework, and ensuring the local innovation actually integrates effectively with global product development pipelines and commercialization plans. The goal is maximum technology transfer and value creation, ensuring the capabilities developed locally translate into maximum impact for the entire global R&D network.
Right, making sure it's not just an isolated outpost. Okay, Section 6, sector-specific advantages and risk mitigation. Different sectors obviously experience different levels of benefit from this unique ecosystem. If an MNC is in a specific vertical, where are the current strongest, most specialized advantages right now for setting up an R&D center in Israel?
Well, we see overwhelming, globally recognized advantages in probably 4 major sectors right now, all benefiting directly from those underlying national capabilities we discussed. First, cybersecurity.
Yeah, that seems obvious.
It's arguably the strongest sector globally coming out of Israel. Israeli companies consistently lead innovation here. They benefit enormously from that systems thinking, the specialized intelligence background, the real-world high-stakes knowledge transferred directly from the military intelligence units. The sources noted Israeli startups secured something like 40% of all U.S. cybersecurity funding in 2024-2025.
40% of U.S. funding. That's just undeniable proof of sectoral leadership. Okay, what's the next critical area?
Artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning. Israel is rapidly positioning itself as a global center for deep R&D here. It's due to that potent combination of exceptional mathematical talent, advanced algorithm expertise, and robust data science capabilities, again, often stemming from solving complex defense requirements first.
So it's the foundational expertise.
Exactly. It creates ideal conditions for sophisticated AI operations focused on areas like predictive modeling, computer vision, specialized deep learning applications. It really positions the country for significant long-term growth in this absolutely crucial sector.
Okay, and what about the life sciences area, health tech?
Health and life sciences, definitely, including biotech and medical devices. Israel possesses world-class medical research institutions, major hospital networks willing to collaborate, and relatively established regulatory frameworks. This makes it an ideal base for pharmaceutical and medical device R&D. The unique advantage here is often the close practical collaboration possible between academic researchers, local venture capital specializing in medtech, and highly advanced clinical facilities for trials.
So faster development cycles, potentially.
Potentially, yes. Israeli institutions have produced numerous global success stories in this space, offering excellent collaboration opportunities for clinical trials and rapid prototype development.
Okay, and finally, that financial technology area, fintech. That must benefit significantly from the regional access we discussed earlier through the Abraham Accords.
Absolutely. Fintech and financial services. This sector benefits hugely from Israel's advanced technology infrastructure and, critically, those growing regional relationships. Tel Aviv offers a diverse, highly sophisticated, and digitally native population, a great testing ground. Plus, there's a strong talent pool for developing both B2B enterprise financial solutions and cutting-edge consumer financial innovation. And yes, that regional opening provides an immediate potential expansion path for successful local applications into the Gulf and beyond.
Okay, we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, though. We've established the historical resilience, the ecosystem, the support. But how do the sources address actual day-to-day risk management for an international company operating amidst ongoing geopolitical tensions? It's still a concern, right?
Of course, it's a primary concern. And the sources are clear that while risk absolutely exists, it is quantifiable and, importantly, seen as highly manageable through structural planning and operational design. The historical resilience of the economy is the starting point, the foundation of confidence. But companies need specific, tangible mitigation strategies in place.
Like what kind of strategies?
Well, several key ones. First, diversification and redundancy. R&D centers are increasingly being designed with distributed operational capacity. This includes sophisticated remote work capabilities becoming standard practice. It includes encouraging geographic diversity within Israel, leveraging those IIA incentives to maybe have sites outside the crowded Tel Aviv area. And it means flexible scaling options to minimize exposure to any single risk factor or specific location being impacted.
Okay, spreading the risk physically and operationally. What else?
Infrastructure resilience. The local technology and physical infrastructure, power grids, internet connectivity, communications networks, they are genuinely among the most robust and battle-tested in the world. They're built with multiple redundancies and have proven crisis management capabilities honed over decades of needing them.
And finally, support structures.
Yes, support structures. Comprehensive business insurance options covering various perils are readily available. And crucially, those government support structures we talked about often include specific crisis management assistance, formal business continuity programs, and even dedicated emergency funding streams designed to help technology companies specifically during challenging periods.
So the overall message isn't that the environment is risk-free, far from it, but rather that the risk is understood, it's integrated into planning, it's priced in to some extent, and it's structurally managed. It becomes a calculated factor rather than a prohibitive unknown obstacle.
Precisely. The sources really emphasize that for companies genuinely striving for global innovation leadership, the strategic value derived from Israeli R&D capabilities, the accelerated development cycles, the higher productivity, the superior innovation outcomes, that value often fundamentally outweighs the associated geopolitical risks when properly managed. The evidence suggests the financial returns typically exceed those often found in less dynamic, perhaps seemingly safer, but ultimately less innovative international locations.
Okay, let's wrap this up then, the outro.
Right. So if we connect all this back to our initial premise, the long-term value creation here seems to compound. It moves beyond just solving an immediate technology challenge. It's really about building robust, adaptable innovation platforms that can serve multiple product lines globally for the parent company.
And that success breeds more success.
Exactly. That success inherently attracts further talent, it reinforces the ecosystem effect, and ultimately it delivers superior financial returns, higher ROI, which justifies the strategic decision to move into what might seem like a volatile market.
Yeah, and the inherent entrepreneurial culture, that rapid experimentation, the tolerance for risk-taking, that's precisely what large, established MNCs often struggle to replicate internally within their more structured home environments.
Absolutely.
So establishing a presence in Israel can act as a powerful complement, maybe even an antidote to the more structured, sometimes slower R&D efforts found in corporate HQs in more stable markets. It's about strategically creating a balanced, potentially higher-yield innovation portfolio that minimizes that risk of internal corporate inertia.
Well put. A balanced portfolio.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? Maybe you're advising a corporation. Maybe you're considering a strategic move into this dynamic region yourself. What's the bottom line?
Well, the sources seem to conclude pretty unequivocally that for companies serious about maintaining or achieving genuine innovation leadership, establishing a presence in Israel now, it isn't merely an opportunity to find slightly cheaper talent or facilities. It's presented as a strategic imperative. The historical evidence strongly suggests superior long-term returns await those who capitalize on this current strategic window, benefiting from the ecosystem's unique, proven ability to thrive even under pressure.
Okay, so that brings us right back to the moment of decision, doesn't it? The source material states, quote, "The companies that recognize this opportunity and act decisively will find themselves positioned at the forefront of global innovation, while those that delay risk falling behind." Now, given that extraordinary $71 billion surge in M&A activity we discussed happening despite recent challenges, maybe the provocative thought for you, the listener, is this. Is competitive inertia just the fear of moving now because of perceived short-term geopolitical risk actually the greatest long-term risk that international corporations face in this context? Something for you to mull over as you weigh that calculated risk against the undeniable potential rewards of true innovation leadership.
That's an excellent provocative thought to end on. In such a fast-moving industry like tech, yeah, inertia can indeed be far more costly in the long run than calculated strategic risk-taking.
That's a fascinating thought to leave with. Thank you for diving deep with us today.